The Badgers are red hot in the portal. They got their quarterback, Colton Joseph, to Wisconsin. Let's talk about it. Let's fire those cannons.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network there is. And thank you for helping us be a part of that. And thank you for helping us get there. Today's episode brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app, see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And there's no bearing this lead, right? We're going to talk Colton Joseph. The Badgers landed their quarterback target number one, the guy that they pulled and said, this is who we want in the portal. They got him. Colton Joseph, per Pete Thamel and many others, and Nick Osen and several others, and Flood. Colton Joseph commits to the Badgers after visiting this weekend. Massive get for Wisconsin. So it's the domino, right? You have to kick off that quarterback domino. They also picked up another tight end, but you had to get the quarterback. Nothing else mattered unless you got the quarterback. They got the quarterback. Colton Joseph, ODU last year. Let's put his numbers back up here. 2 years left of eligibility, right? So you're getting a RPO dual threat quarterback with size that has 2 years of experience, that has 2 more years of eligibility. Really, really, really big get for the Badgers. And let's go. This feels good. So I think I want to start here. We've talked a lot about Colton Joseph's game. And we're going to talk more about his game, what he brings to the table, how it impacts the team, what's next, how it's going to fit with Jeff Grimes. There's going to be a lot more here. But I think we got to start here. The money's real. Everything Chris McIntosh talked about, right? Everything that we kind of heard mid-season, that we're going to invest in this program. We're going to push it to where it needs to be in the Big Ten, where it should be in the Big Ten, where it's traditionally been for the last 25 years in the Big Ten. The money's real. You don't go get a quarterback like this unless that investment is there. Feel good about that, Badger fans, because you can't succeed in college football without that type of investment, without those resources. The money is real. It's there. Colton Joseph is validation of that. This is a big win for so many reasons outside of the football field. Nationally, I had 2 or 3 people text me this morning who don't cover the Badgers. They're more national level guys. And they said, holy cow, how did Wisconsin get him? Because the perception is Wisconsin's down, right? Because the last 2 years they have been down. To be able to go get in Colton Joseph nationally, that creates some shockwaves. It's going to bring other players in with him. There's going to be receivers that come with Colton Joseph because he's here. There's going to be other offensive players that buy in because you got the quarterback. It's a validation of the staff, of what they're selling, of what they're telling players what we're going to do this year. The vision is still there. You have to, because there's other programs after Colton Joseph that would also spend money. So it's the money's there, but also the staff is still selling belief. They're still creating a vision. This is a big, big win, guys. This is a big, big win. And you look back at the last 3 portal cycles, is this the biggest win they've had? I don't even know how it's arguable. This is a tier A quarterback for Wisconsin. It's one of the best quarterback transfer targets in the country, and you're coming off a season where you couldn't throw the ball, where the offense was what it was. To be able to go out and then get this guy who fits perfectly with what Jeff Grimes wants to do, by the way. This is a seamless fit for what Jeff Grimes wants to do. Just a massive, massive gift for Wisconsin. Let's go to the comments section. And there's a lot that still needs to happen, right? You need to get some receivers. More is going to come. You got to get some receivers. You got to get some offensive line. You got to get a couple more pieces defensively for sure. All of that still needs to happen, but none of it mattered if you didn't get the quarterback. None of it mattered if you didn't get Colton Joseph, because this was the guy you zeroed on. You said you're going to spend money. You said you're going to go in all in this offseason, and you did it. You pulled it off. It's a massive kudos to the staff, man. And let's give some of them credit. Let's give Pat Lambert, who's phenomenal. Give him credit. Kenny Guyton, quarterback's coach, who's a tremendous recruiter of people. Kenny Guyton is tremendously talented at building relationships, at continuing relationships. He's a great communicator, really personable. He's a great, great guy on the staff to try to bring somebody in. tremendous job. Brady Collins is phenomenal at selling to recruits as well, and just being that guy in the room that talks about the vision and what we're going to do for you when you get here. Kramer says, let's go. Running with Jason. Badgers are so choice right now. Brostein says, boom. Big says, give me Trey Brown too, and I'd be so freaking happy. Him and CJ at ODU lit it up. Are there any other receivers from ODU in the portal we could take a run at? There were 2 receivers, I think, from ODU that enter the portal. Trey Brown is definitely one of them. Again, you're going to get receivers because you got the quarterback. It's such a massive deal. And everything I've heard about Colton Joseph, I heard it from a couple different places, is this is also the type of quarterback you want in your room. Leader, a dog, physical, somebody that has those type of intangibles that you want in a huddle. This is a really big get, guys. And it's a massive win for Wisconsin, where bring back NFL 2K says, literally saved my day. Yeah, this saves the offseason. This is a massive get for Wisconsin. I can't oversell it from where this program was in the middle of last season, when it felt a little rudderless, when people were frustrated about Chris McIntosh saying we're going to go all in, and you said, well, money's not going to solve it. Well, money gets you a quarterback like this. Money does solve some of it. Money is a massive deal for Wisconsin. And if you can go get a quarterback like this, you can solve a lot of your issues. It just is what it is. Baron Von Trout says a better highlight of my day than this stud of a Packers game will be. Big says, watching highlights of CJ and he has speed. Let's throw a couple quotes up here. So I was doing some research into Colton Joseph for sure. This is from Clay Helton, who played him this year. Georgia Southern head coach. You think you've got everybody covered, and he just takes off. He's moving the chains. He's creating explosive plays. This is from the Old Dominion offensive coordinator. The thing I've come to admire about Colton is how he plays the game. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. He kind of toes the line between cocky and confident. We call him Cowboy Colton. That right there is very much what I've heard about him. He is a very confident player, but he's not brash. Not brash in the way that he rubs teammates wrong. His teammates believe in him. Talking to somebody who covered a lot of his games last year, he said his teammates really gravitate around him. He's a really natural leader as a quarterback, very confident. He gets in the huddle. People really believe in what he's going to do, but he's not brash. He's not off-putting with it. I think he's a really good dude for the quarterback room. A couple more stats here. Joseph last year had 951 yards on design rushes. That was third most in FBS. Joseph's 8.2 yards per designed rush, easily the most for any quarterback in FBS, ahead of second place Bryce Underwood. The most yards per designed rush in FBS for a quarterback. This is another good one here. 3.9 yards after contact per designed rush. Second most among all FBS quarterbacks. Again, you can talk about competition level, but there's a lot of quarterbacks at his competition level that aren't putting up these type of numbers. Okay. He is a physical, really dynamic runner, really athletic player, 6'2", 210. And I think the other thing you want to talk about here, and then we'll get into a bunch of your comments. Guys, let me know your concerns. What's your ceiling? What's your floor for Colton Joseph? We talked about that before, but now that he's here officially, I think we talk about it more. One of the other big things with this is this could be your guy for 2 years. You might not need to go to the portal next year. In fact, if everything goes right, I don't think you will. You get him in this year, plays well, you have him for one more season, assuming he doesn't completely get hurt, which would be the worst, or just ball out and he's an NFL guy. But you probably have him for 2 years. So that means next year you're going into the offseason with the most important spot potentially already checked off. This maybe allows a guy like Ryan Hopkins to come in, learn for 2 years, and then take over the reins. Or Carter Smith. Carter Smith could come in or could stay here, develop, learn, and then take over the reins. That's a big part of this too. Maybe you can finally get out of – maybe this is actually the bridge quarterback that gets you out of the year-to-year stuff, right? Getting a portal guy with 2 years allows those younger guys to develop. I don't know. It's definitely another part of this that's really big. And then I think the last thing I want to hit on just from the 30,000-foot view before we really maybe dive into his game a little bit is this is just a validation of what this staff can do. It's a validation that given resources, they can still compete with just about with most schools in the country. Because this is not a Wisconsin kid. This is a Southern-ish kid. He grew up in California. He's played in warm weather. You get him up to Wisconsin on some of the coldest weather of the winter, coming off a terrible season. with schools like Florida State, Florida after him, who have tons of receivers on their roster and who will also spend a lot of money, who are also great football schools, who play in the SEC, who play in great weather. And you get Colton Joseph and you just lock him up. You just are able to sell your vision of the program and how you're going to use the quarterback spot. This is a really strong validation point for the staff, for Jeff Grimes, for Kenny Guyton, for Coach Fickle, for the resources, for Chris McIntosh, for this administration. Massive gift for Wisconsin. Can't oversell it. All right, we're going to come back, get your comments. Ceiling floor, what's your biggest concern? What happens next? This is a massive get for the Wisconsin Badgers. But first, we're going to take a quick second for our friends of the show. Come back. As always, thank you for tuning in to Locked On Badgers. Today's episode brought to you by our great friends over at Rugiet Ready. Something that we probably don't talk about enough as men, as guys, is stress. It comes up all the time. Stress from life, money, work, stress from not having a quarterback. It doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up, it can show up at the worst possible time. Rugiet Ready is designed to help you take back control. Next generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body. So you can feel present, you can feel confident, you can be ready when it matters most. Rugiet Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in one mitt that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. You connect with board-certified doctors online. Everything ships discreetly to your door, and over 150,000 men have already made that switch. Most men are ready in about 15 minutes on average, so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment is right, like when a quarterback commits. That feels like the moment is right. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now's the time. Head over to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugiet Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. Okay, let's come back into the show. Let's fire the cannons. Let's take some of your comments. Massive get for the Wisconsin Badgers as they get their quarterback one. All right, let's hit the cannons because this is a big one.
Fire the recruiting cannons. Another one is headed to Madison on Wisconsin.
Okay, some of your comments here. Z Badger, do you think he knows how to read defenses? That was an issue with Smith last year. We need to get another quarterback also, don't you think? Great comment. Great comment. Yes, I think you have to go get another quarterback. You have to insulate yourself at the position. They tried to do that last year. I thought they did a great job of that last year, actually. You bring in a Billy Edwards. He's a starter. Let's go get another guy with starting experience in Daniel Neal. And let's also go get a Hunter Simmons. They brought in 3 quarterbacks last year and a high school kid. They got to bring in another one for sure. What type of quarterback do you want as the backup? This is really interesting to me because I've thought about this. Colton Joseph is a running quarterback. Knock on wood, right? He's going to take some shots. Ideally, you limit those shots. You're strategic with it. You have balance, but he's still going to take some hits. He's still going to take some shots. So you need a backup. Do you go and get a backup that is similar to Colton Joseph, obviously at a lower pedigree, a guy who can run a little bit, who can run the offense? Or do you go and get somebody who is maybe just a safer quarterback, a pocket passer, somebody who can just come in and make simple reads? I think you go, ideally, you go and you find somebody with some experience at a lower level that wants to experience big-time football and it can throw the ball some. So if he comes in, you still have an element of your game. That's what I think you do. I don't think you can find a backup to Colton Joseph that can run and throw because those guys are going to be starters somewhere. So you go get a Hunter Simmons-ish type, right? I mean, a better version of that, but a guy who has experience, can sit in the pocket, can make the simple reads, and can keep the offense at least moving through handoffs, through out routes, crossers, simple stuff, but somebody with experience. So yes, you absolutely have to go get another guy. Z Badger's other question, do you think he knows how to read defenses? I do. I do think he's had 2 years of experience as a starter, and he threw for 2,600 yards last year. Again, completion percentage needs to come up, but I also think he was really forcing the ball not forcing, but he was longer yards per attempt. He pushes the ball downfield more, and I think he'll have probably a little more help around him in Wisconsin. So I think he can read the field. I don't think he's an elite passer. I don't think anybody would say that, but I think he's good enough. I'm pretty high on Colton Joseph. I mean, if you remember weeks ago, the first guy I talked about in the portal was Colton Joseph. He's the guy I talked about. I said, this is my guy. I think he's a perfect fit for Jeff Grimes. Let's talk about that more for a second. And this is what we talked about on the basketball side a little bit. I love Nick Boyd and I love John Blackwell on paper, but the fit doesn't seem to work. At least it hasn't so far. The fit of this Badgers basketball team again, it's like puzzle pieces from different puzzles, and you're trying to hammer them together. Colton Joseph and Jeff Grimes, this is the type of quarterback he wants. He wants this type of quarterback, a guy who can take deep play action shots, a guy who can run RPO, a guy that can do some quarterback design runs, a big physical guy. This is who Luke Fickell kind of wants. This is a perfect fit. And if you're going to keep Jeff Grimes, you're going to continue this style of offense, you got to get him the type of quarterback that works for him. This is it. Not that Billy Edwards couldn't have worked, but this is a better fit. And it's a better fit that's reflected in the fact that they have more resources to go get the perfect guy. I can tell you they were interested in Fernando Mendoza last year. They would have liked him. They couldn't afford him. Now they're able to go get their guy. It's going to be really interesting. And Jeff Grimes has to work. This has to work. If it doesn't, there's going to be discussions, but they got the guy that fits Jeff Grimes. I think that's really important. Dister, fire those cannons. We did. Mike says, good addition, but I'm not getting hyped this year due to the last 2 years being disappointed. More like we have to see how it translates on the field. For sure. For sure, you have to see how it translates. But this is very much like baseball free agency. If you go get a frontline starter, this is very much like basketball free agency. If you go and you're able to land a max contract shooting guard. I mean, those things you still have to see how they translate. But if you're not going to get excited about landing one of the best quarterbacks in the portal after the last couple of years of quarterback play at Wisconsin, if you're not going to get excited about the possible addition here, then you're maybe just not an offseason guy, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We do have to see how it translates. But this is, you couldn't have scripted this better. You could not have. This has gone perfectly so far for Wisconsin, and you have to give them credit for it. Yeah, running with Jason. Badgers is a choice right now. I love that. Let's go down here. Let's see who else. Tons of people in the comments. Appreciate all you guys. P says he's not soft. He's definitely not soft. He's definitely not soft. Mike says, do you think Tretch or Hilton will come back now? I don't. And I don't. I'm good with that. And that's no shot whatsoever across the bow of Tretch Kahuna or Eugene Hilton. But you need guys who want to be here to some degree. I think there's an element of if they go to the portal and then they come back, I don't know if they're ever full in. Tretch has done it twice. He can definitely go. I wish him success. It's not anything negative, but I just think he needs to go somewhere else. Find success somewhere else. The Badgers can move on. He's a slot receiver. You can find those in the portal. Eugene was a loss. Eugene Hilton would have been a starter next year. Sounds like he's down to LSU and maybe another SEC school, Ole Miss maybe. I forget. I think he's going to go SEC from what it sounds like if Indiana doesn't swoop in there. Good for him. Wish both success, but I think the Badgers also need to move on. Badgerman says, pumping brakes until I see him. How is it different than the last three we got? No, this is a very fair question. He's better than Billy Edwards. He's better than Tyler Van Dyke. I think he's in a similar tier to Tanner Mordecai, and I think Tanner Mordecai would have been really good at Wisconsin if we had an offense that worked and he didn't get hurt. Guys, this is, again, it might not work, but you got to get good quarterback talent to succeed in college football, and that's what this is. He's definitely a tier above the Tyler Van Dykes and the Billy Edwards. And so it's no shot to those guys. They weren't in the same tier. They weren't in the same financial bracket. Having more resources allows you to shop in the nicer department stores. Being able to go get a quarterback like this, it elevates the ceiling of the program. It'll bring more talent with him. He's just a better get. I mean, quite frankly, he's just a better get than the last 2 years. He's more talented. He's more physically talented. He's way more dynamic than a Tyler Van Dyke. He's way more dynamic than a Billy Edwards. I think he's just got a much higher upside. John says there was the same kind of hype for Billy Edwards Jr. I disagree. I was fine with Billy. I liked Billy, but I don't think Billy was in this tier. I just don't. And by the way, the reflective interest in Billy Edwards and the reflective interest in Colton Joseph would tell you that too. Colton Joseph is a much hotter commodity coming out of the portal than a Billy Edwards. Bo says, how's this guy better than Mordecai? I liked Mordecai. I think they're probably in a similar bracket. And again, I think you saw Tanner Mordecai come back against LSU when some of the snapping issues got fixed and he got some weapons back and played really well. I think Tanner Mordecai made an NFL roster. Tanner Mordecai's good, guys. Tanner Mordecai was a good quarterback. It was not we ended up firing that offensive coordinator for a reason. Tanner Mordecai was not the problem on that team. Tanner Mordecai was good. And I think with Jeff Grimes, Tanner Mordecai would be even better. Tanner Mordecai is another guy that really fits what Jeff Grimes wants to do. Nathan says, who should be his backup? Probably Carter, O'Neal at 3. I feel like O'Neal is the backup. That's why he hasn't left. O'Neal may not be healthy till middle of next year. I do think Carter stays, but you got to go get a veteran guy. I think it'll be Colton Joseph, veteran guy, and then Carter Smith is how I think I would take it. King versus Mamba says, for all those concerned about his completion percentage, Russell Wilson never completed over 60% of his passes at NC State. Yeah. Beautiful start to a Sunday from Brostein, ordering my custom-made Joseph jersey. Winning Gambler says you need a different style for a quarterback too. Griffin says keep them coming. Yeah. And Gaming Republic says we did it. Let's go. Again, I think caution is fine. There's no reason that you have to think this is going to be perfect. And it's not perfect. He's not the perfect quarterback commit, but this is a massive get for Wisconsin. This was their quarterback one. This was the guy they wanted at the top of the portal. They targeted him early, and they were able to get it done. So it's a big, big get for the Wisconsin Badgers. We're going to take a quick second here, come back with more on the Colton Joseph stuff, more of your comments. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show. Quick second is always to say thank you for tuning in to Locked On Badgers. Today's episode brought to you by our great friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel has got you covered all NBA season, especially on Fridays. So Friday's already great, right? Friday's already fun. They're exciting. And now with the NBA Happy Hour, FanDuel gives you a new way to kick off the weekend. Every Friday, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. On the FanDuel app, you're going to open up the Happy Hour. There's going to be bonuses, boosts, surprises, fun ways to get engaged into the weekend, into the NBA games. And FanDuel's already got you covered with every type of line you want, parlays, futures, teaser spreads, all the other sports, NFL playoffs coming up, college basketball, NBA. It's all there. It adds a little extra energy to your Friday basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app, see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on the FanDuel app. All right, let's get back into this. More of your comments, and we'll bring Justin in, who's jumping into the show as well. Colton Joseph, man. Colton Joseph to Wisconsin, a big get, although there are several people in the portal that are hesitant to be excited, or several people in the comments hesitant to be excited.
Okay. So my comp to him from a Badger perspective yesterday was Tyler Donovan. I think there's more upside here, but I do think that there's a lot you can work with him at quarterback. If you're somebody who's going to look at them chasing a quarterback, needs to be a guy who is a top NFL draft pick type, you're probably not going to absolutely fall in love with this. I think that there are some I don't necessarily want to call him warts, but he does not have a cannon for an arm. I think he's a guy who's a polished passer. I think he's a guy who keeps his head pretty well at the quarterback position. But if you're looking for a guy who's going to sit there and carve up defenses with his arm, I don't think that that's necessarily how you're going to utilize him. What he does do, because number one, what I will say, there aren't any of those guys really in the portal. I don't know of anyone that I look at that I can say, this guy can go out there and win with his arm, and he can do it against a really good defense. What you have with a guy like Joseph is you have a guy who can kind of change the calculus of the game. And when you're playing a really good, and I brought this up yesterday when Rajiv and I were talking about it, and I said, some of the things that he does, they put a defense in a bind. Like, he's the type of quarterback that you're not going to want to play man-to-man against because, number one, if you're going to have your corners turning their back on him, he is a guy that's fast enough to break the pocket and take off running. And if you have guys screaming downfield, suddenly he's got 15 yards of just free running space because there's nobody there to stop him. And the other part we've talked about numerous times with mobile quarterbacks, they just make it easier to find throws and find angles if they're a quarterback that understands the position. When we broke down Carter Smith, it was one of the things that we looked at with him. There were throws that were there to be made. It's one of the things that Carter really needs to grow with, but that's something you're expecting Colton Joseph to have a pretty good idea on coming into the season, where he can exploit a defense where him moving one way or the other forces a safety or a linebacker to shift over 2 yards, and that opens a window for a throw. Those are the type of things that a mobile quarterback does that you don't get from guys that are pure pocket passers or just pure throwers that don't have that ability to move.
Dobler says we are ruined. Ryan's portal beard is gone. Listen, if you go sign a multi-million-dollar quarterback, I'm going to shave. You go sign a multi-million-dollar quarterback.
Mine's still here.
guys, people, I'll say this too. People act like, and Justin, you hit on this. People act like the portal is a grocery store where you go and you can pick out the perfect quarterback and the perfect ingredients. This is a big get, guys. I get there's frustration at times over the last multiple quarterbacks. Mordecai was a good get too, by the way. I've said it multiple times. He would have been much better in a better offense. This is a big get, especially for what you want to do at Wisconsin. I had somebody tell me he's probably nationally like a B plus A minus tier quarterback, but for Wisconsin, he's an A plus. He's an A plus for Wisconsin for what you can do right now. And I 100% agree with that. I think it's a home run addition right now at this point with where Wisconsin is.
So the other part of this I want to say is I've looked at those portal lists. The quarterback rankings are pure garbage from what I've seen. There's a guy like Deuce Knight, and I brought this up in the Discord. He's rated a 95 in the transfer portal. This is a kid that's got 250 career passing yards at the college level, but he was a 5-star coming in, so it's just assumed he's going to be amazing wherever he sets foot. That's not how it works at quarterback. When you're in the portal looking for these guys, the teams that are looking for a quarterback, they're looking for somebody that is a known quantity that they can trust. I have this coming into my room that I can rely on to be there for me and be consistent. If you're a high-level team, like if you're Ohio State, where you have a starter already in place, you can take a risk on a guy like that and be like, hey, if he doesn't pan out, we got our guy for this year. It's fine. Wisconsin can't take that kind of risk and look at this and be like, hey, I can take a total bet on potential. And if this doesn't work, Wisconsin goes into the next year and as 5-7 or 4-8 because they get bad quarterback play. You have to get somebody who has a defined floor that you know you're going to get good play out of. And most of the guys that I looked at in the portal, I'm like, these guys are potentially have really high ceilings, but the floor doesn't exist. Like we have no clue what half these guys are going to be. There was a quarterback from Kentucky that I think is going to ASU now that was rated higher than Colton Joseph, who had a 15-12 touchdown to interception ratio. There is no possible way in my head I can look at those just from a statistical standpoint and say it makes sense to get that guy and rate him higher than Colton Joseph, who has really good physical tools and also has way better production.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I listen to the transfer portal. Guys, go look at some of the best kids from multiple teams over the last several years in the transfer portal. A lot of them don't pan out. So don't take the portal rankings for gospel. It's what does it fit? Does this fit Wisconsin? Does it fit a need? Does he have the physical tools? And again, I think this is a move. Where's Wisconsin really struggled outside of obviously the injuries and those kind of things? They've struggled in the red zone. They've struggled manipulating defenses. They've struggled because they've been too basic. This is a guy that can solve all those issues for you. He fits with Jeff Grimes. Now, Justin, you got to keep adding. You got to get a couple receivers.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not done. This doesn't fix everything. But what did you want at quarterback this offseason? Sorsby? You're not going to get him.
Yeah. He is ready-made going into – and look at the two teams that he was being fought over for in the portal. And we've talked about this as one of the other perspectives that I have on the portal in general. Just because a quarterback enters the portal does not mean he's in play. There are multiple guys that were like, there were only 4 or 5 guys that I thought were higher QBR guys than what we got in Joseph. I believe 4 of them were accounted for when I looked at it. And I'm like, you can't look at that guy as being available. Like, that's not somebody that you are negotiating with. That's somebody who's entering the portal to go specifically to another location. And at that point, you just have to acknowledge the fact that what does the board actually look like? Colton Joseph was way high on the list if you look at the guys who are truly in play. A lot of those top 5 guys were gone the second that they entered. Guy like Messemacher that people wanted, he was following his coach. We knew he was gone the second he ended. Sorsby had like two schools that he was locked into. Tech was identified very early before the portal even opened. Indiana was in play. Indiana couldn't get it done. Like, if Indiana can't bring him in, and he went to Indiana for a short period, that tells you all you need to know about that. Like, there isn't a better team in the country right now, and they couldn't even lock him down. So the way I look at this is people really need to be more open-minded and look at things in the way what you're getting at the quarterback position. I personally think of the guys that were still available, unless we're banking on pure potential and just measurables, he's probably the top guy that I would have gone after. And that's simply because I look at the other guys and I'm like, there's a lack of production here with a lot of these guys. Like we've talked about Minchie before. He could be really good. I don't want to bank on it. Yes. Like next year could be a learning year for him where he is 15 touchdowns and 9 picks. And you're like, that hurt us in multiple games because he just wasn't quite ready.
Yeah, Dominique, and there's a reason that Florida State wanted Joseph over Legway. Listen, no recruit, portal or high school, is a guaranteed thing.
Yeah.
5-star, 4-star, 3-star, nobody is guaranteed. No free agent signing, no draft pick, nothing in this sport is guaranteed. But they got their top of the guys. I can't stress this enough. They got their top of the board guy at quarterback.
He was number one. Like I'm sure if they were sitting in that room and they were talking about it, Sorsby's the guy that they would say is like, we have him rated higher. We know he's not in play. Mm-hmm. And like we've talked about the other places that you need to hit now. And we haven't heard any of these names yet, but I would venture to guess we're going to see some offensive linemen pop here before the weekend's over or tomorrow at the latest that are going to really kind of bolster that room too. I think that room is going to get much more competitive. It's going to get older, which I think is really valuable because we've talked about it. So much of the depth in that offensive line room is super young right now. And you don't want to be banking on a kid that has zero experience to jump in and be hitting his potential right away, because those guys could lose you a game where they're just getting their feet wet and they just don't know quite what. We saw it last year, a guy like Mandel, who I've been super on top of as being a guy who I really like. And he had multiple games where you're like, there's some growth that's going to come of this. Like he made some mental errors that ended up costing us on plays. That's where you're looking for getting some of these other guys who potentially bump that room and make the offense considerably better going into this year and push everybody so that even if you have guys that are in-house already that end up playing, they earned it. They had to be pushed and it happened.
Yeah, you need a couple bodies there for sure. You need a couple bodies there. You need a couple at receiver. You need probably another running back, and you need more defensive pieces. You need a backup quarterback still. Like, guys, there's more coming. This isn't it. The puzzle's not done, but you got the biggest piece of it. By the way, Billy Edwards to North Carolina. Not sure if anybody's tracking that. Good for him. Good for them. Whatever. Like moving on. Preston Zachman to Indiana. It's probably a good move for Indiana, unfortunately, and for Preston. John says, hype or no hype, they need to get a bag to some offensive lineman or he will get killed. Agreed. They need to bring in offensive line help.
You can't go into next season having virtually all your depth, your secondary players being redshirt freshmen. Yep. Like that is a recipe for disaster. It's no, flack on those guys who are in there who we really like, a lot of them. I don't want to have to rely on a redshirt freshman to be in and be able to play quality snaps against good teams. They very well could be good. They very well could not be up to the task or not consistent enough. So you definitely need to get bodies in there that are guys who hopefully have played a little bit.
Mike Witt says, Badger QB comparison, he reminds me of Tanner McAvoy with his body type. I think the body type is similar. McAvoy was a little taller. McAvoy was a better runner, obviously, but he couldn't throw the ball at all. I get the Tyler Donovan one too, but he's bigger than Donovan.
Yes,
he's only
6 foot.
Yeah, I think he's got a bigger arm than Donovan too, if I'm going to be completely honest. I think he's like somebody we haven't had, quite frankly. I don't think we've had a guy quite like him. He's not Bollinger. He's not Donovan. I think he is a new type of quarterback, and I'm excited, guys. Like we got a actual quarterback coming in. And if you remember the very first video I posted when the portal was about to, I said, Colton Joseph is my guy. This is the target. This is who you go get. This makes sense. He fits. I think he's maybe gettable. I wasn't even sure at that point. I think it's a home run, and I'm excited for it.
So now that it's all said and done, what's your feeling on this? Because I feel like this is pretty much a done deal when the portal opened.
I don't think it was a done deal when it opened, but I think they identified, and here's a quick thing too.
We got the first visit, which is telling to me, especially when FSU is on that list, and Florida was too for a little while.
I love, first of all, Brian Smith. Someone asked it when he's coming on the show. Now he's coming on. I think
he's taking a sabbatical.
Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. Brian Smith's accountable. Brian Smith will own his receipts. But the thing that Brian Smith said that was dead on is Florida State really wanted him. Florida State has had to pivot because Wisconsin is getting Colton Joseph.
Mhm.
I think what this speaks to some degree, and I don't know if we've done a good enough job of talking about this, it speaks to some alignment within this Badger administration. Because if you can move this quickly, identify, get, and secure your top quarterback portal target amongst other competition, that tells me you guys are aligned. And it tells me that some of those lines of communication we've talked about being blocked or not working great, I think this is proof it's smoothing out. And that's a big deal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it coming into this. What number would you put it on? It's still around like what, 30 probably for this year that we need to bring in. There's a lot of depth. Like we're seeing some of the top shelf guys pop here early, and there's going to be more. There were a couple of receivers in. One of them that I kind of view as a depth piece, and one of them that in Rigby, and the other one which Nick. I don't know if Nick still wants us to keep that one quiet or not, but we'll stay off of it. He would be a number one receiver for us, or at worst, a really high end number two. And if that happens, that's a really nice pickup. But like you said, you probably need 2 to 3 guys that are going to be starter quality, and at least 2 guys that are like, he can come in and provide quality reps at the receiver position, that are guys that can get you 25 catches or 20 catches this year and be a nice threat as a secondary target.
Justin, Nathan says, out of the last 3 quarterbacks, who do you think Colton has the highest floor? Out of the last 3 portal guys, so it would have been Mordecai, Van Dyke, and obviously Billy Edwards. I would actually really quickly answer. I think Mordecai had the highest floor, actually.
Yeah.
Mordecai was good.
I agree with that.
I think he didn't get a fair shake, but I would say this is the second highest floor.
If he was in a competent Grimes offense, I think that he would have had an above average Big Ten season. That offense was broken for him. I think that it was just everything across the board. I felt like he made it better than what it was. Because you remember how many times he scrambled and made a play? Mm-hmm. Like that could have been a negative play for that offense. And that was not a great team. Like it probably gets more credit just based off the number of wins than what it was offensively. Joseph would probably be number 2 for me. Some of the throws that we saw with Billy, which were interceptions, were kind of like, he airmailed that or whatever. There's not a lot of that on Colton's film. Mm-hmm. I watched the Indiana game again because I wanted to get another look on it. 2 of the 3 picks, one of them was a receiver who jumped a little too early and it went off both hands and got picked off the bounce. The other one, it went off the guy's chest and got picked. And people will hit that who don't watch any of it, but I'm like, those should not be interceptions. Like those are on the receiver for not making a play when he put the ball on them. So there wasn't a lot that I've seen with him where I look at it and be like, wow, that was a bad read. And that was a bad throw. I wish he would drive the ball a little bit more in his deep ball. He has a tendency to kind of do the Russell Wilson without the Russell Wilson arm, where he'll skyball it and give his guy a chance to run under it. That works a lot when you have secondary guys like Ohio State, where a second safety may creep over and just go straight for the ball. There's probably going to be some that you worry about getting picked off, unless he can start to drive the ball and put it where nobody else can get to it but his receiver.
Yeah, and he's probably not going to do that this year. Like, again, this isn't a perfect.
A lot's going to change.
Yeah, guys, it's not like you don't go to the portal and find a fast Peyton Manning. Like every quarterback in the portal is going to have like something. You're like, well, let's see how that translates, or let's see how it fits here. You're not, I actually liked his comp from Wilhanna, Jake Plummer. I do think there's some Jake Plummer.
Plummer might have had a bigger arm.
I think so, but I like.
But yeah, from a mobility standpoint, I agree with that completely. I feel. He's probably a tick faster than Plummer was, but Plummer was bigger. I think he was like a legit 6'3", 6'4" type guy. But yeah, I feel like they were just kind of elusive in that kind of shifty way at quarterback. Joseph's going to be a problem on his legs. Teams are going to game plan for the fact that they want to keep him in the pocket.
Yeah. And that's a really good point, because just the attention, we talk in basketball a lot about gravity, but it's similar in football. Gravity matters in football too. The gravity that he's going to have from linebackers having to take a step forward, a safety forward, it's going to open up underneath throws. It's going to open up outside runs. It's a different animal, guys. Hunter says, are we celebrating 7-5 next year? Absolutely not.
No,
there's no way.
That's not going to, if the money that seems to be getting splashed is being splashed, you need to show like the schedule is not that hard that if you're going to get your A+ guys in the portal or your A's or your B+ guys, that should be acceptable, because the type of money that I'm guessing is going to be paid is you should be looking at 8-4 minimum.
Yeah, I agree. You can't celebrate 7-5 with the schedule next year if you're going to spend money. Guys said your buddy Brian Smith from FSU Lock On was seriously bad-mouthing Wisconsin. He wasn't. I watched the beginning of that show. He was saying what I think a lot of fans would say is, why would a quarterback pick Wisconsin? And listen, that's fair.
It absolutely is fair. Of course, you can also say, why would they pick Florida State at this point?
Also fair. And Florida and several other blue blood schools. But I think he was just saying what a lot of people said is, why would a non-Wisconsin kid, a kid that grew up in California, pick Wisconsin as a quarterback spot? Hard to argue that. All right, let's wrap it there. We're at 40 minutes. Any last thought, Justin? Actually, I didn't ask you this. I asked Rugiet this the other day because we were on the show. What's his ceiling? We talked floor. What's his ceiling?
I've seen people throw out numbers for him at this coming season. I think that his completion percentage is going to take a healthy jump here, because the depth of target is just going to drop considerably for him. And that will make a huge difference in terms of some of the easy throws. But I think they're going to give him some legitimate weapons. And I think if I had to take a guess, 2,600 yards is probably right around what I expect from him, what he had this year, because I do think it's going to be a more cohesive, coherent offense if it is what I think it's going to be. And I would say the passing numbers are probably fairly similar at ODU. I think the rushing numbers are going to drop off some. I would guess he's probably like 500 or 600 yards rushing and maybe like 6 or 7 touchdowns there. But I think that he's capable of being a quarterback that really taxes the defense if things come together and if the coaching is good this year. So I realize I'm giving a lot of caveats there, but I think that those are reasonable numbers. And I'm seeing people saying 2,600 yards isn't like it's undoable or that's low. We had 1 year under Longo where we had 2,800 yards. It just was split across multiple quarterbacks. That should be fine. Like we should be able to get to 2,600 yards. I don't feel like that is an unreasonable thing. I do think that if the passing game shows real life, that Grimes will use it. He had multiple 3,000-yard seasons at Baylor and multiple at BYU. He will throw the football if we've proven that part of the offense is coherent.
I agree there. Realist says 7-5 is the ceiling next year. If that's the case, there's going to have to be changes. Yeah. Mike Witt says Joseph equals Kaepernick in college. Different types of athletes. Kaepernick is much faster,
bigger arm.
Bigger arm.
Probably less touch.
He couldn't layer throws, but Kaepernick was a much faster, more straight line guy. This is a better
4-4 guy.
Mm-hmm. Don't expect he's a dual threat guy, but he's not coming in here to be Kaepernick. He's not that. Let's see any other thoughts here. John says, I like running with the beard more, but I have a wife, John, which also matters. She doesn't love the beard. So we'll move on from there. And yeah, we'll wrap it there again on Wisconsin. Really do appreciate you guys. A bunch more coming up because there's a bunch more content coming up, a bunch more players popping, but Colton Joseph to Wisconsin, a massive gift for the Wisconsin Badgers in the portal. And now we can get a little excited about it. Now that domino can kick over other dominoes. Yeah. More to come on Wisconsin, Justin, and we will definitely talk to you guys later.